Rian had always believed the border station of Vesper Ring smelled like burnt wires and old coffee, but tonight it carried something sharper, like the air before a lightning strike. He noticed it the moment he stepped off the shuttle. His hair rose, his skin tingled, and somewhere deep in the humming conduits, lights flickered as if nervous. He muttered that the station probably needed a therapist, but then he saw her and realized the electricity had a source. She stood at the far end of the docking platform, half in shadow, long ears tilted back as if listening to a whisper in a language only she could hear. She looked almost human, but not quite. Her presence felt like a gravity shift, her stillness too precise, too controlled. Rian had seen dangerous tech, unstable reactors, and once an exploding noodle dispenser, but nothing made him stop like the sight of her. She glanced at him with eyes that held exhaustion and warning in equal measure. "Human," she said, voice calm but edged. "Don't come any closer. My touch is lethal to your kind." Rian, who had recently survived being electrocuted by a malfunctioning toaster-sized star battery, raised a brow. Define lethal, like instant vaporization, or more of a slow, dramatic swoon? Because I've always wanted to go out dramatically. Her ears twitched. He wasn't sure if that meant irritation or amusement. "I'm serious. A single touch could end you." "Good news," he said cheerfully. "I'm pretty sure I'm fireproof." "You're not. Emotionally, maybe? Also no." He grinned despite himself, drawn in by the way she balanced fear and frustration, as if she were used to warning people and equally used to being ignored. Before he could introduce himself, the station lights dimmed, then flared red as a metallic ripple echoed through the platform. The overhead speakers crackled. "Security alert. Unregistered scavenger craft docking at Bay 6. Rian winced. Scavengers were never a good sign. They stole anything that glowed, hummed, or was too heavy for a normal person to lift without injuring their spine. And judging by the sudden thrum of footsteps behind him, these ones were already boarding. The alien woman's stance changed instantly. So did the air around her, charged, unstable, almost singing. She stepped back from him as if his proximity alone could trigger disaster. "You need to leave. I can't let my energy flare near you." "You think I'm running?" Rian asked, though a rational part of him whispered that he absolutely should be running. "Look, I've handled scavengers before. Once. Badly. But still." "You don't understand," she insisted. Sparks cracked at her fingertips, though she never touched anything. "If they attack, I can't control what happens." He eyed the sparks, swallowed, and forced a shrug. "Well, if I turn into space dust, please avenge me dramatically. Preferably with a cool one-liner." She stared at him like he was the strangest creature she'd ever met, which was impressive considering she probably came from a planet where people jogged with antimatter pets. The scavengers burst into the platform. 3 of them, wrapped in mismatched armor, clutching weapons that hummed with stolen power. One pointed a blaster at Rian. "Hand over the alien." Rian lifted his hands. "Well, gentlemen, can we discuss this like civilized?" They fired. He didn't think, didn't plan. He simply dove toward the alien woman, expecting to tackle her out of the line of fire. Instead, the moment his body moved into her energy field, the world erupted in a shockwave of shimmering blue. The scavengers were flung backward like toys, skidding across the metal floor. Rian blinked at the lingering light around him. He was fully intact. Not dead, not vaporized, not even missing an eyebrow. The alien woman stared at him in disbelief. "That's impossible. You should be unconscious at best." He checked his arms. "I mean, I feel fine. A little tingly, like drinking too much fizzy soda." Her expression shifted from shock to something far more complicated. Fear, confusion, and a spark of curiosity. "You," she said quietly, "should not be able to stand this close to me." Rian managed a shaky smile. "Hey, maybe I'm special." Her long ears flicked again, and for the first time, something like a reluctant smile touched her lips. "Or maybe," she murmured, "your species is far stranger than mine." which, coming from her, was the highest compliment he had ever received. The station alarms howled as if personally offended that two people were still alive after what had just happened. Rian wasn't sure whether to feel proud or concerned that even the machinery seemed surprised by his survival. The alien woman moved beside him with caution, as though any sudden shift might accidentally detonate the world. Her long ears stayed angled toward the corridor filled with flickering lights and distant metal clatter. "We can't stay," she said. "More scavengers are coming." Rian nodded. "Right. Running sounds good. Running is one of my talents. That and fixing things badly." She gave him a look that suggested this was not comforting. "Follow me. I know a path through the maintenance tunnels." He followed her into a narrow access hall that smelled suspiciously like burnt coolant and old socks. The lights flickered as they walked, dimming whenever her energy swelled too close to the walls. Conduits rattled overhead, and a few sparks fell, prompting Rian to mutter encouragement to the station. "Hang in there, buddy. We'll leave you alone soon." She glanced back. "You're talking to the building?" "I talk to everything. Keeps me sane. Mostly." Her ears dipped slightly, a movement he was learning to interpret as a very restrained laugh. It suited her, like someone who had forgotten humor existed but was slowly rediscovering it. They climbed through a hatch and dropped into a storage deck where obsolete drones hovered in dusty silence. The place was full of abandoned tech. Mechanical limbs, scanning visors, and something that looked disturbingly like a blender with rocket boosters. Rian made a mental note not to touch anything. She moved gracefully between the heaps, though her tension was obvious. When she brushed too close to an old power coil, it lit with a sudden violet pulse. Rian stepped back instinctively. "So, you always glow like that near electronics?" "It isn't intentional," she said. "My energy reacts to anything conductive. That's why I can't be near people, or most structures, or plants. Once I accidentally overcharged a tree. It exploded. That sounds traumatic and embarrassing. There were witnesses. Trees exploding usually draw a crowd." She stopped long enough to look back at him, and there it was again, that slow, surprised amusement that softened the severity in her eyes. But the moment faded quickly as a burst of static rolled along the deck. A scanner drone snapped to life overhead, its red eye sweeping toward them. Rian whispered, "Is it friendly?" "No." "Does it explode too?" "Only if it touches me. So we definitely shouldn't let it touch you." She didn't bother responding. The drone spotted them and fired a stun beam that carved a glowing scar along the metal crates. Rian grabbed her arm out of reflex. He didn't think, he just acted, and a surge of energy rippled around them like a shockwave rolling through water. The drone fizzled, sparked, and dropped to the floor like a stunned bug. He stared at his hand still gripping her. "Okay. That's becoming a thing." She stared too, eyes wide. "You shouldn't be alive. You shouldn't even be conscious." Not the first time someone said that today, but she was rattled. More rattled than the drone that now lay smoking on the floor. She pulled back, hugging her arms close as if afraid the next pulse might hurt him after all. "I don't understand what you are. A mediocre human?" "No," she whispered. "You're something else." Before he could ask what that meant, a booming crash echoed through the deck. The scavengers had tracked them, forcing their way through the hatch with the enthusiasm of accountants attempting parkour. The woman seized Rian's wrist, carefully, like holding dangerous glass, and pulled him behind a towering stack of old thruster parts. "We cannot fight them," she murmured. "If my power spikes again, this whole deck could collapse." Rian peeked around the corner. "Bad news, they look very motivated. One of them is stretching." "Who stretches before a fight? That's unfair." She exhaled sharply, a mix of frustration and fear. "We'll move through the next tunnel. It leads to the prism engine chamber. If I can overload the conduits from there, the blast will disable the scavengers without harming you." "I like the without harming me part. But we must hurry." They slipped into a narrow crawlspace where the ceiling hung low and the floor vibrated with each distant impact. Her ears brushed the overhead cables, sending tiny sparks across the metal. Her energy fluctuated like a storm restrained in human shape. "Does this hurt you?" he asked quietly as they crawled. "No, the danger is not to me." "Then why are you shaking?" She froze for a moment. "Because if I lose control, I will destroy the first person who has ever stood near me without fear." Rian didn't respond at first. He simply reached forward and touched her hand again. Gentle, grounding, human. Her energy flared, then softened around him like heat learning to become light. She looked back with bewildered, shimmering eyes. "See?" he whispered. "I'm fine." For the first time, she didn't pull away. Instead, she let him hold on as they moved forward together, crawling deeper into the tangled heart of the failing station, toward a chamber that might answer the question neither of them dared voice yet: why he could touch the woman no man was ever meant to survive. The prism engine chamber loomed before them like the fossil of a long-dead star, its towering crystal conduits glowing faintly as if waiting for a purpose they had forgotten. The air hummed, thick with static and old power, and Rian felt tiny in its vastness. The alien woman stepped forward slowly, her long ears rising with alertness, her energy brushing against the dormant machinery like a breeze waking embers. "This chamber amplifies whatever I release," she said. "If I focus carefully, I can disable the scavengers without harming you." Rian nodded, though his voice came out with the confidence of a toaster learning existentialism. "Okay, great, perfect. One tiny question. What's the chance you accidentally vaporize the whole station?" "A small chance." "How small?" She hesitated. "Statistically, uncomfortably relevant." "Well," Rian sighed, "I suppose I didn't expect to die old anyway." Her lips twitched in a nervous, almost smile, but the tension in her shoulders didn't ease. She stepped into the center of the room, inhaled, and let her energy bloom. Blue radiance spiraled from her hands, her skin shimmering with patterns like starlight caught in motion. The chamber responded instantly. The crystal conduits pulsed, the metal floor trembling under her power. Then the scavengers crashed in behind them. 3 figures, scorched and furious, stumbled through the doorway with weapons drawn. Rian moved on instinct, placing himself between them and the woman, even though he knew he could barely block a sneeze, let alone a blaster. One scavenger snarled, "Move, human!" "No thanks," Rian said, raising his hands. "Already had my exercise today. 2 whole minutes of running. Very intense." The alien woman's voice trembled behind him. "Rian, go. Now. Not leaving. You have to. If I lose control." "You won't." Her energy surged dangerously, scattering sparks that ricocheted through the chamber. Rian felt the heat of it against his back, vibrating through his bones, but he held his ground. Then a stray blast from a scavenger shot past him and struck the floor near her feet. The shock broke what little stabilizing focus she had, and her power exploded outward in a violent flare that shook the entire chamber. Crystal veins lit up like lightning trapped in glass, the air itself turning heavy with force. She crumpled to her knees, clutching her head. "I can't control it. Please stay away." But he moved toward her anyway, slowly, deliberately, like approaching a wild creature who believed itself entirely made of danger. His skin prickled with heat, his muscles buzzing, but nothing burned him. Nothing tore him apart. He reached her trembling form and placed his hands on her shoulders. Her energy hit him like a wave, bright, overwhelming, immense, but instead of destroying him, it flowed into him, through him, as if he were a conduit built for this and simply never told. She looked up in shock. "Rian, you should be dead. I get that a lot. No human can survive this. Maybe I'm not great at following rules." Her energy continued pouring through him, but now it changed, softened, stabilized. The chamber, instead of amplifying chaos, began amplifying harmony. Light wrapped around them both, their outlines blurring into one shimmering silhouette. Then, as the last pulse of power settled, the scavengers' weapons powered down, their armor short-circuited, and they collapsed unconscious to the floor. Silence fell. Rian exhaled shakily. So we lived. That's good. Zero vaporization. Also good. She stared at him as though seeing him for the first time, truly seeing him. This shouldn't be possible. But your body, it channels my energy, redirects it, grounds it. You were never in danger. Rian smiled weakly. I mean, I was in emotional danger. You yell very forcefully. Her laughter came unexpectedly, soft but real, echoing through the chamber like something long buried finding daylight. She touched his cheek gently, cautiously, as if expecting her fingers to crack the world apart. But they didn't. He leaned into her hand, warm and steady. I've spent my life believing I was a weapon, she whispered. A curse. Something to fear. He gave her hand a squeeze. Looks like you're just highly electrifying. In a charming way. You are impossible. Most inspiring humans are. They walked out of the chamber together, leaving behind sparking machines and unconscious scavengers. The station groaned around them, but the alarms had quieted, almost as if the structure itself had decided they deserved a moment of peace. As they reached the docking platform, she paused, looking out at the swirling expanse of the nebula beyond the windows. My people will not believe this. They will need to see you, study you. You're saying you want to introduce me to your family? Already? Her ears rose sharply. That is not. I didn't mean. He bumped her gently with his shoulder. I know. I'm joking. Mostly. She shook her head, but her smile lingered this time, full and bright. Rian, thank you for trusting me when I couldn't trust myself. He looked at her luminous eyes, her long ears still flicking in nervous rhythm, and felt something shift inside him. Something braver, steadier, more willing to walk into danger for reasons beyond survival. Anytime, he said. Besides, it's not every day a guy discovers he's basically an alien lightning rod. They stepped into the shuttle bay side by side, heading toward a future neither species had imagined. One shaped by a woman who feared her own touch, and a man foolish enough, stubborn enough, human enough to embrace her anyway.